Strokes start to die young. Actress Dana Plato, who played Coleman's sister on the show, died at just 34 of an overdose in her final interview.
Dana Plato was found dead at just 34 years old, only hours after a humiliating appearance on The Howard Stern Show. What followed shocked fans who had grown up watching her as the sweet, innocent Kimberly on Different Strokes. As authorities pieced together her final hours, disturbing details emerged about her struggles, her isolation, and the events leading up to that night. This is the tragic story of how a beloved teen idol's life spiraled out of control, and what really happened before it ended. Dana Michelle Strain was born on November 7, 1964, in Maywood, California. But stability was never part of her early life. Her mother, Linda Strain, was a teenager, single, and already raising an 18-month-old child. Overwhelmed and struggling to cope, Linda saw Dana less as a baby to nurture and more as another responsibility she couldn't manage. When Dana was just 7 months old, her mother made a heartbreaking decision and gave her up for adoption. Dana was adopted by Dean and Florine Plato, who brought her into a new home in the San Fernando Valley and gave her a new last name. But this fresh start came with its own complications. Florine, in particular, treated Dana less like a child and more like a project. After divorcing Dean, Florine became a single mother again, this time determined to turn her daughter into a star. Dana was taken to endless auditions, and by the time she was still a child, she had appeared in more than 100 television commercials. That success wasn't enough. Florine wanted her daughter in movies. At just 13 years old, Dana landed roles in Exorcist II, The Heretic, and Return to Boggy Creek in the same year. Both films were widely panned, but they gave Dana visibility. Her next film, California Suite, performed much better, earning critical praise and several awards. Still, none of it compared to what came next. Shortly after, Dana auditioned for The Gong Show as part of a cheerleading team. The group didn't make the cut, but a television producer in the audience noticed Dana immediately. While the team was dismissed, Dana was offered an opportunity for something else entirely, a new sitcom called Different Strokes. She was being considered for a leading role, but one major obstacle stood in her way. Around the time Dana Plato was being considered for Different Strokes, she was also weighing another serious possibility, trying out for the U.S. Olympic figure skating team. She was still a child, facing a life-altering choice, skating or acting. Like most teenagers, she chose acting. It felt exciting, glamorous, and full of promise. Years later, it would become clear that this decision came at a heavy cost. After landing the role, Dana stepped into the part of Kimberly Drummond, the older sister to two adopted brothers, Arnold and Willis Jackson. Todd Bridges and Gary Coleman played the boys, and the three children quickly formed a close bond. Surrounded by adults, studios, and expectations far beyond their years, they leaned on one another for support, something they would need more than anyone realized at the time. Different Strokes became an instant hit. Overnight, the young cast was thrust into fame, money, and constant public attention. But success came with pressure. Like many child stars, they were still kids while earning more than their parents and carrying the responsibility of keeping a top-rated show afloat. To cope, Dana and her young co-stars began experimenting with alcohol and drugs. It was an escape from the expectations crushing down on them. For Dana, things spiraled quickly. At her lowest point, it sometimes took hours just to sober up enough to get through a workday. Meanwhile, her mother, Florine, remained fiercely protective, but that protectiveness often did more harm than good. Dana later said she was kept isolated, sheltered from real life, and never taught basic coping or life skills. Florine was so fearful that someone might kidnap her daughter that she failed to notice danger much closer to home. After the divorce, Dana's adoptive father, Dean, had largely faded from her life. But once she became famous, he reappeared, with demands. In a shocking move, he attempted to sue Dana for financial support, seemingly believing she owed him for adopting her. The lawsuit failed, but the emotional damage lingered. Before long, Dana would find herself supporting others, long before she was truly able to take care of herself. While still starring as Kimberly Drummond on Different Strokes, Dana Plato met rock guitarist Lanny Lambert and married him at just 18 years old. The marriage alone likely made the show's producers uneasy, worried about how fans might react. But the real shock came soon after, when Dana announced she was pregnant. A pregnant teenager didn't fit the carefully controlled, wholesome image the show depended on. At the same time, rumors of her drinking and drug use were beginning to circulate in the media. Before long, the decision was made to write her out of the series entirely. Dana's response to being fired surprised many. According to Conrad Bain, who played her on-screen father, Dana admitted that the pregnancy had been planned and that she was genuinely happy. She even said something haunting, that once her baby was born, she would never be alone again. Tragically, the opposite happened. After giving birth to her son Tyler, Dana's life began to unravel. In 1988, she suffered 2 devastating losses in a single week. Her marriage collapsed, and at the same time her mother died after battling scleroderma, a rare and painful disease. Suddenly, Dana found herself without a husband, without her mother, and without her job, all at once. Overwhelmed by grief, financial pressure, and emotional exhaustion, Dana made a decision she believed would give her space to heal. She signed over power of attorney to her accountant, trusting him to manage her finances while she focused on surviving her losses. It would turn out to be one of the most damaging decisions of her life. Dana Plato was already at an emotional breaking point when her situation grew even darker. The accountant she had trusted vanished, taking nearly all of her money with him. After years of work, she was left with just $150,000. Worse still, she wasn't alone in being betrayed. The accountant had stolen roughly $1 million from multiple clients. Dana believed she had finally hit rock bottom. In reality, her worst losses were still ahead. Years earlier, she had once said that having a child meant she would never be alone. But that hope slipped away, too. After 2 years of separation from Lanny Lambert, their divorce moved forward. Citing Dana's financial instability and ongoing struggles with addiction, the court made a devastating ruling. Her son Tyler would live with his father. Dana lost custody and was granted only visitation rights. For the first time, she truly was alone. Still, she refused to give up. Determined to shed her image as a former child star and reintroduce herself as a serious adult actress, Dana set out to reinvent herself. Her first step was a controversial one: plastic surgery. She believed breast implants might help distance her from her Different Strokes past and open doors to more mature roles. Once she made that change, she leaned fully into it. In an effort to completely erase the wholesome image of Kimberly Drummond, Dana posed for Playboy, hoping the bold move would signal a fresh start and revive her career. She waited for serious acting offers to follow, but they never truly came. Instead, she appeared in low-budget films like Prime Suspect in 1989 and Bikini Beach Race in 1992, projects that did little to restore her credibility. Her television comeback proved even more damaging. In 1990, Dana appeared on The Sally Jessy Raphael Show for a segment focused on former child stars. She intended to use the platform to tell the public she was sober and rebuilding her life. But during the taping, fellow guest and child actor advocate Paul Peterson reportedly noticed her leaving the restroom with powder visible around her nose, casting immediate doubt on her claims. What was meant to be a turning point instead became another public unraveling, further eroding the fragile comeback Dana had hoped for. By the early 1990s, Dana Plato had lost almost everything: her marriage, her mother, custody of her child, and nearly all of her money. So when she walked into a video store in 1991, pointed a pellet gun at the cashier, and demanded the cash, It was less a calculated crime than a desperate act from someone in crisis. The frightened clerk handed over the money, and Plato fled. Moments later, the clerk called 911 and made what would become an infamous statement. "I've just been robbed by the girl who played Kimberly on Different Strokes." Plato hadn't fully grasped how impossible it would be to disappear after something like that when she was still so recognizable. Just 15 minutes later, she returned to the store. Plato either came to her senses or realized escape was futile. She handed back the stolen money, an amount that totaled just $164. Police were already on the scene, and she was taken into custody without resistance. There has always been another version of that moment. According to the clerk, Heather Daly, Plato didn't return to surrender. Instead, she came back because she had dropped her glasses while climbing over a wall during her escape. When she returned to retrieve them, Daly recognized her and alerted authorities. Whatever the truth, the outcome was the same. Dana Plato was arrested. For her, this was the lowest point. Sitting alone in a jail cell, she had no one to call and no one to bail her out. In a twist no one could have predicted, help came from a stranger. Entertainer Wayne Newton, who had never met Plato, heard about her situation and posted her $13,000 bail. It was an act of unexpected kindness at a moment when she had been completely abandoned. The judge also showed leniency. Although brandishing even a pellet gun was a serious offense, the court appeared to recognize the desperation behind the act. Plato was sentenced to 5 years of probation rather than prison time. But the damage was done. The incident didn't fade quietly. It became a national spectacle, and Dana Plato's fall from grace was now impossible to ignore. After the video store robbery, Dana Plato's troubles ignited a nationwide conversation about child stars who struggled later in life. The public didn't have to look far for examples. Her former Different Strokes co-stars Gary Coleman and Todd Bridges were facing serious problems of their own. While the discussion itself was heavy, not everyone treated it that way. A Las Vegas radio station crossed the line by turning Plato's arrest into a parody song, set to the tune of "The Girl from Ipanema." The song caught on, and eventually reached Plato herself. She was furious that her lowest moment had become a joke. Yet, in a strange twist, the same station later contacted her. Whether out of guilt or opportunism, they didn't just apologize, they offered her a job. Plato was hired as a celebrity reporter, tasked with interviewing famous guests and asking deliberately uncomfortable, even humiliating questions. She tried to make it work, but the role went against her nature. She struggled to ask the degrading questions the station demanded. In the end, the producer admitted she was simply too nice and let her go. In 1992, Plato found herself at the center of another unusual milestone. She became one of the first celebrities to appear in a video game. Night Trap featured Plato and a group of girls at a sleepover in a house monitored by live surveillance footage, with players tasked with protecting them from danger. Though tame by modern standards, the game caused an uproar at the time and was ultimately shut down following a U.S. congressional hearing. That same year, Plato's legal problems resurfaced. She turned herself in for forging a prescription for diazepam, a medication used to treat anxiety. This time, the judge showed little mercy. Because the offense also violated her probation, Plato was sentenced to 30 days in jail. After serving her time, she entered a drug rehabilitation program. Money was scarce, her career was nearly gone, and her options were shrinking, but Dana Plato still tried, however faintly, to believe things could improve. When speaking to reporters later, Dana Plato reflected openly on her time in prison and on probation. She was strikingly clear about how close she believed she had come to an even worse fate. In one interview, she said that if she hadn't been caught, things might have ended far more tragically, that she could have died from a drug overdose. The remark would later feel hauntingly prophetic. Even so, the cycle of addiction, jail time, and relentless media scrutiny was slowly wearing her down. Attempts to explain herself publicly only seemed to accelerate her decline. Throughout the 1990s, Dana struggled just to survive financially. With acting offers disappearing, she took a job in customer service at a dry cleaning shop. Customers were often surprised to find a former sitcom star handing them freshly pressed clothes. Many recalled that she was kind, humble, and approachable. But the work was a stark contrast to the life she once knew. That chapter didn't last either. By 1997, Dana was desperate for money, and even more desperate to act again. When a producer pitched her an outrageous idea, she agreed. The project was a direct-to-video adult film titled Different Strokes, a story of Jack and Jill, a softcore parody built around shock value rather than redemption. It was a move that stunned even longtime observers of her troubled career. Her personal life offered little stability. The string of humiliations, her arrest, working at a dry cleaner, and the adult film reflected a woman no longer thinking clearly. Around this time, Dana entered a second marriage to actor and producer Scott Adkins, also known as Scotty Gelt. The relationship was doomed almost immediately, ending in annulment after just 1 month. Still searching for love and direction, Dana soon became romantically involved with her manager, Robert Menchaca. The two became engaged and moved together to Navarre, Florida, living in a run-down Winnebago motorhome. It was hardly the fresh start she needed. Despite new relationships, Dana's life continued to spiral. Money was running out, options were shrinking, and desperation was setting in. Faced with the choice of dignity or survival, she made a painful decision. She would begin selling her own tragic story just to keep going. In 1998, Dana Plato appeared as herself in a film that hit painfully close to home. Desperation Boulevard told the story of a former child star desperately trying to revive her career in Hollywood. It was hard to tell whether taking the role required bravery or sheer desperation. Dana may have hoped it would mark the beginning of a comeback, but instead, it became one of the final chapters of her life. Around the same time, her former roommate Jennifer Waby publicly claimed that Dana was still using drugs. Determined to defend herself, Dana went on Howard Stern's radio show to tell her side of the story. During the interview, she spoke candidly about her financial struggles, her past addictions, and the toll fame had taken on her life. She insisted, firmly, that she had been sober for 10 years. But the controversy didn't stop there. Waby had made additional claims, alleging not only that Dana had taken money from her, but that their relationship had gone beyond friendship and into something romantic. As the media frenzy grew, Stern opened the phones to listeners, and the tone quickly turned cruel. Callers hurled insults, questioned Dana's honesty, and openly doubted her sobriety. The pressure was overwhelming. In a moment that sealed the disaster, Dana became emotional, angry, defensive, and visibly shaken. What hurt her most wasn't the insults, but the realization that people didn't believe her. Desperate to prove she was telling the truth, she offered to take a drug test live on the air, even allowing Stern to cut a piece of her hair for it. But once the microphones were turned off, the truth surfaced. Dana asked for the hair sample back and quietly admitted she was taking pain medication following a wisdom tooth extraction months earlier. In reality, she had relapsed. The interview ended not with redemption, but with humiliation. After the humiliating fallout from the Howard Stern show, Dana Plato and her fiancé, Robert Menchaca, drove their motorhome to visit Menchaca's mother. It was Mother's Day. During the visit, Dana said she wasn't feeling well. She took one of her pain pills along with a muscle relaxant, then excused herself and went back to the motorhome to lie down. It was one of the last times anyone saw her alive. Later that night, Menchaca joined her and fell asleep beside her. When he woke up, something was terribly wrong. Dana was still there, but her body was cold and lifeless. She had overdosed in her sleep. At first, authorities ruled her death an accidental overdose. But that conclusion didn't last. Once investigators reviewed her history with substance abuse and the toxicology results, questions arose. The autopsy showed she had taken far more medication than would be considered normal for mild pain. The ruling was changed. What had initially been called an accident was officially determined to be a suicide. She was only 34 years old. Dana Plato was cremated, and her ashes were scattered over the Pacific Ocean. At the time of her death, her net worth was reportedly just $1,000. Her son, Tyler Lambert, was only 14 years old when she died. He was raised mostly by his paternal grandmother, but maintained that he had been close to his mother. Like Dana, Tyler was drawn to fame, though he gravitated toward music, singing and rapping rather than acting. Tragically, he also inherited her struggles with addiction. Former child star Johnny Whitaker, who later became an addiction counselor, took a personal interest in Tyler and tried to help him get clean. But it was a difficult battle. Tyler admitted that missing his mother fueled his substance use. Whitaker, while sympathetic, later noted that although Tyler and Dana were emotionally connected, they had spent relatively little time together in the years before her death. Mother's Day, and the anniversary of Dana's passing, remained especially painful for Tyler. Eventually, that grief became overwhelming. Just days before Mother's Day, he withdrew from friends and family and disappeared for several days. He told a friend that he simply wanted to be with his mother. Soon after, Tyler Lambert tragically took his own life. Years later, on what would have been Dana Plato's 55th birthday, her Different Strokes co-star Todd Bridges paid tribute to her online. He wrote, "You were the one person I could always talk to. You were one of my best friends. I will never forget you and love you forever. Happy birthday, Dana Plato. R.I.P. You are free, my friend." Todd Bridges is now the last surviving member of the original Different Strokes family, a quiet reminder of how much was lost. Dana Plato's story isn't just about a fallen teen idol. It's a painful reminder of what can happen when fame comes too fast, support comes too late, and private struggles are turned into public spectacle. Behind the headlines and controversies was a woman who never stopped trying to be believed, loved, and given a second chance. So what do you think truly led to Dana Plato's tragic end? Was it fame, exploitation, addiction, or something deeper that was never addressed? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and if you want more deep dive stories uncovering what really happened to Hollywood's most tragic figures, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel.